Hello. I'm here. Welcome. 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 Oh, gonna be a little bit of a slow moving, low energy day, I think. Talk about that in a sec. Waiting for the ad timer to run out. Uh, and that is the end of the ad timer. Hello. Hello, and welcome to here, my kitchen. I am back. Um, yeah, I had a splitting headache yesterday, right around this time, so I was just like, I'm not gonna bother with it. But we're here. Good thing too, because I took advantage of the time to thaw out. You'll remember the freezer that is packed to the ceiling with stuff. Um, well, we're doing something that I fished out of there. It's a steak. I had a picture of it in the Discord with the marinade ingredients because I knew I wouldn't be able to do that here. Quick marinade. It's only been in there for 4 hours. But it's important it's a quick marinade, only been in there for 4 hours. There's pineapple juice in our marinade today, which will tenderize the meat, but be super careful when using pineapple. It will make meat go mushy if you leave it in there too long, and can make some weird things happen as it literally digests the proteins. Fun fact, when you eat a pineapple, the pineapple eats you back. So that's the main event. And I was just kind of puzzling what I want to do with it. I think we're making cabbage wraps. There's another thing I have to use up today. We got another ingredient that's been sitting here. They got away from me. I picked up some bell peppers, and they were really nice when I got them. This one was green when I got it and not wrinkly. This one was already red when I got it and not wrinkly. They haven't gone bad. They've just gone wrinkly because I've kind of let them sit around. Hopefully the insides are just also wrinkly. Current plan is to use both of these in their entirety today because they're just kind of sitting here gradually shriveling up. I'm actually thinking that in the state they're in, a little bit less moisture would be good for a sauce. I don't want to be too watery, which I'm going to call bell pepper salsa. I don't know how that's going to work out. We're just gonna wing it. We're gonna play around with those guys. I'm also going to turn the marinade that's on the meat into a glaze for the meat because I want it to be like a sticky sweet thing. That's where my head's going with it. So that's where I'm shooting. That's where I'm aiming. And I've got a fresh head of cabbage, so some cabbage. That's the final the element. That's all the parts. So step one, I guess. And I'm just kind of winging it. We're just kind of playing around today and winging it. But step one, here's our piece of meat. There's a half a cup of pineapple juice, a quarter cup of soy sauce, and then equal parts cayenne pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, and black pepper in there. And like I said, it's been there for about 4 hours. For most marinade, this is a pretty thin piece overall, so I'm not worried about having like a big, like massive chunk to have to penetrate through. This is a sirloin tip, which I got at some point on discount. Actually, I can tell you when I got it. Because the date on the package here. It was vacuum sealed. Okay, it's been in my freezer under vacuum seal for more than a year. So it's time to use it up. It's actually in great shape for being in my freezer for that long, which is why I was so excited to get that working vacuum sealer so that I can buy things and seal them up myself. Oop, not 4, 5. But he's been in there long enough, I think. We're gonna pull him out, pat him dry, but not lose the marinade. Because we're gonna save the marinade. No freezer burn. It was in uh, one of those. Oh, here I've got a different. Like this. One of these super vacuumed in things. That's a different piece of meat that I should use at some point. Because freezer burn, we could talk about freezer burn. What freezer burn is, it's crystallization of the moisture in the meat or whatever you've got frozen, and then it sublimates away. So you get this sort of breaking down of the tissues around where it's sublimating away. But that can only really occur in exposure to air. It'll gradually occur even under complete vacuum. But what did I get? Oh. But that's why a vacuum sealer thing is so nice, because you can do that. You could buy something on discount, for example, seal it under vacuum, and then it'll keep even longer. This is a big piece too. I'm going to have leftovers for sure. And a little scrap of fat. We're saving the juice because we're going to try to turn the juice into a glaze. I'm not sure how this is going to work because I don't want to necessarily cook this thing right through the center. But this is the piece. You can see there's not really any sign of freezer burn. It's a little bit browned now because there's soy sauce in the marinade. We're going to pat it dry, put it on that rack that I pulled out, and let it kind of air out until I cook it, because that will help the surface it'll help the development of the crust on the surface, a brown crust on the surface, if there isn't a bunch of extra juice for it to contend with. The other side isn't quite as nice. And actually, I think we're going to do a little trim on this because I think the reason this was in the discount in the first place is that's a little bit of silver skin, and that stuff will not cook up properly no matter what we do to it. So we're going to get rid of it instead. Okay, so this is going to kind of hang out for a little bit. We will return to it a bit later on. It's a big piece of meat. I'm surprised at how big this is too. This was before the crazy price death spiral. I'm going to give it a little extra salt. Before I put it in, but I want the surface to dry out a little bit. So it's on a rack, patted dry. Let's get rid of that little scrap. Okay. Wash my hands for the raw meat. And get out the other board. And we're going to start in on these wrinkly peppers. And we're going to see what they look like on the inside when they've gotten super wrinkly on the outside. Wrinkly does make them a little harder to cut. Oh, there is a little bit of a bad spot in there. We can just cut that away. No, it's that little black mark on the outside. But we can just cut that bit away at the bottom. No harm, no foul. I will say, with it, we got a baby pepper in this one. I will say, with it softened up to this degree from drying, it is a little harder to cut. It keeps wanting to bend instead of just cutting through neatly. It's making me nervous. I'm going to slip with my knife. And I don't want to cut myself because that is against Twitch's terms of service. And also, I would be injured. In general, you don't want to let your peppers get to this stage. It just makes them harder to use. I have a bad habit, especially with peppers, of buying them early without a clear, like, I'm going to do this. And then they kind of sit out and end up like this. Which, again, they're perfectly fine to eat. They just have gone a bit floppy. Which, if you want something like the state these are in, the flexibleness of these, you could wrap this around something really, really easily. And that might be fun to do someday. The issue is you can't always be sure they won't go, well, in the winter you can because it's more cool and dry. Although we've had some not so cool, not so dry weather lately. In the summer they would just get moldy. This one had a little spot in it too, so we definitely have to use them up today because that spot would just get bigger and bigger. Let's try the red one. I'm not going to use the little baby pepper. The red one has no bad spots at all. This is actually usually what I find when I open one of these wrinkly ones up, is that they're just perfectly fine on the inside. It's much more unusual to have a little spot like the orange one there did. The orange one, of course, was green when I got it, so that one really is showing its age. The red one is much easier to peel too, or not peel. We're not peeling the pepper. We're trim. So, what's on tap for you today, tonight, tomorrow, the rest of your life? Let me tell you what I did yesterday after I canceled the stream. Because I had a headache, so I canceled the stream, took some headache medicine, and then ended up feeling better. So then later on, I was playing games. I saw someone playing Spore, and I haven't thought about Spore in forever. Actually, we'll keep the scrap bowl handy. I own Spore. I have Spore on Steam, so I just fired it up. I installed it, fired it up. It's old, so it installed in a split second. Got into it, and before I knew it, it was 4 a.m. That was crazy. I slept great afterwards. You know what? You know what? This has developed a slight warp, and it likes to spin, and I don't want to use the other side. So while I'm thinking of that, right now, right this second, I'm going to attempt to fix it. Hopefully these don't break. This has been bugging me, and I think about it after the fact. I'm like, oh, yeah, I should do that. There. Anyways, much easier to cut with the big knife, especially when it's slightly soft like this. So I think what we're doing, and I might even give this a whiz in one of the machines, just to one of our automatic machines, just to chop it up. We'll see. But I feel like my inspiration, what I'm working with, is like a chimichurri, but from a starting point of having bell peppers. So not really a chimichurri. Ryuya, hi! Welcome, welcome. How's it going? How's things? We are slicing up some very finely aged bell pepper. Dry aged bell pepper. Ooh. Well, let me know how it turns out. I, of course, didn't follow the recipe exactly. I hardly ever do. Yeah, one of my friends sent me that recipe, and I decided to give it a go, and it worked out great. No, it was really good. So I obviously can't take credit for that one myself. I neither wrote it nor found it. Oop, some of these aren't quite coming apart. Well, yeah, we're in the process here of, we have a steak. It's in the fridge. We took out of the marinade. We've been marinating it since early this afternoon. We just took it out, blotted the marinade off, and have it in the fridge so that the surface can dry out a little bit before we get to cooking it. And I'm making a salsa, and then I'm thinking about other elements. We were going to turn that marinade into a glaze. How would you get that started as well? So this is a bit of a large volume for what I was initially thinking, which was just to mince this up right on the cutting board. Black Keeper, hi, welcome, welcome. How's things? I have to be mindful of the pans that I use because we're dealing with some sticky and some acidic elements today. So I don't want to use my cast irons for the steak because the acid in the marinade will eat into my nice seasonings. Tired is 0.30. I'm also tired. Start this right here. I'm okay. As I said, last night after taking headache medicine to assuage my headache, I ended up playing Spore, which I haven't thought about in years. And then the time vanished, and it was 4 a.m. And then I went to bed. The thing is, I didn't wake up late. I woke up at the normal time, or roughly the normal time. So I got very little sleep last night. So I'm also a little bit out of it, tired. So this stuff, this is garlic powder, onion powder, cayenne pepper, soy sauce, pineapple juice, black pepper, and meat drippings, because the steak was marinating in it. So it has to be cooked. And I want to reduce it until it's like thick and sticky. And I think to make it work the way I want it to, we're going to have to add more sugar to it. Possibly multiple kinds of sugar, because I want it to be... I have in my head something that I'm not sure how to get to, so we're going to weave towards it and see if I can't manage it. Oh, we have an ad coming up. So on account of my tiredness, I'm going to be losing my train of thought and kind of stumbling around a bit today. So it's the perfect time to be using a hot stove and sharp knives. But yeah, so I'm going to get this at least bubbling. Then I'm going to taste it. And I'm going to decide what... Because I don't want to taste it now because it has raw meat drippings in it, or meat juices in it. So we'll get it to at least bubbling, because then it'll be boiled, it'll be cooked. And then I'll taste it, see what we're working with, and start adding things to it to get it to where I think it's supposed to be. We might end up adding either molasses or golden syrup. I also have a few fruit syrups. I don't know that I want to clash with the pineapple, but some of them might go with pineapple. I've got a bunch of other options too. I've got red pepper jelly, which is a sweet jelly. I was just looking at things. And trying to figure out what could we do with this. So we're gonna put that over there. Let that start bubbling away. I'll just keep going on this side. We have an ad approaching. We are going to want a red onion for sure. There's our ad. Get the papers all off of this guy, and I think I'm leaning towards assembling the ingredients of this and throwing it in the food processor just to blitz it together, and make a sauce, like a salsa, which is what I put in the title because it's kind of what I was envisioning. So I'm going to keep actually slicing them pretty thinly. But I'm not super concerned about evenness. So a chimichurri, actually don't know that I've had chimichurri. It's an herbs and oil sauce from Argentina that's served with grilled meat, typically. And it's just it's like a fresh salsa, but it's all herbs. I don't need even slices is the thing. I do have a mandolin, and if I ever want thin, perfectly even slices, especially if I got something I want to do a lot of, we're just doing one onion, so I'm not super worried about it. I will pull out the mandolin. I'm not super concerned about that. But yes. Oh, my sauce is bubbling. It immediately smells pretty good. It immediately smells pretty good. It smells extremely savory. We might end up adding more pineapple juice to it as well, depending on what this goes, how this goes. Because I don't know that I want the sauce part to be super savory. I want the sauce part to be sticky sweet. So, it's okay. It definitely needs more sugar because it's very spicy. Probably needs more acid too. I did add quite a bit of cayenne pepper to it, so I shouldn't be surprised, but I am surprised. I was surprised. It surprised me. The flavor behind the spice is really good. So we're going to add some more pineapple juice to it. I'm going to make this pineapple forward. Little shot of lemon. And one of our sweet syrups. Going with molasses because it will bring sort of a darker, bitter flavor to the mix that none of the other elements are bringing. And then I've got to stir it in because the molasses will try to sit on the bottom. So I am doing this in a non-stick pot to hopefully prevent it from sticking to the pot. Let's give it another taster. We're going to have to end up reducing it. Also got to remember that it's supposed to be more punchy because it's going to be served with the meat. Better. Fruity. Ooh. Ooh. Still spicy, but like fruity and sharp. It's good. That's good. Okay, that's going to have to simmer away for a little while now. Pop back over here. We are in a bit of a use stuff up mood today. One of the things that led me to chimichurri was I was looking around and I saw I've got some parsley left. Not a ton, but it's a little bit uh, wilted, so we probably should use it up. What are we gonna do with the cabbage? I'm thinking cabbage wraps. So our salsa, our meat, our sauce, maybe scallions, maybe something else, maybe a piece of fresh fruit in there, and then cabbage leaf wrap around the outside for that crunch. Uh, I believe normally a lettuce leaf would be the way to go, but not a big fan of lettuce. So if I was making a chimichurri the proper way, I would start like this, with just a big mound of parsley. Since that's not what I'm doing, and that's not the sauce I'm making, this is going to get added to all this stuff. Let me ask the old internet about chimichurri. Let's see. We're using bell pepper instead of hot pepper. We have the big pile of parsley. Some oregano. We're not using the cilantro. We have parsley instead. Vinegar, salt, and garlic and shallot, but I have red onion. And I just looked at Bon Appetit's recipe and a bunch of olive oil to make it into a sauce. I think we can do that. I think we can do that with our with the food processor. I think we're going to do that with the food processor. And then we can, it'll be done. I can set it aside. This doesn't need to be cooked, it just needs to be combined. So hold on a sec while I grab the device, the machine. Will the cabbage leaf be flexible enough? I think so. Cabbage leaves are aren't like rigid. Oh, the device. Do you guys have a good view there or what? And then olive oil is the oil of choice. Stream it in to make it into a cohesive sauce. So yeah, even though I just sliced all these up, we probably could have done this without the pre-slice. There's a lot in there. There's airspace, of course. They're all like strands because of the way I cut them. So the airspace in between them will compress down as we whiz them up. Vinegar. I understand the request for vinegar and decline. It's a lot of vinegar too. We're going to go with some lemon juice instead. Oregano. Tiny scissors. Tiny scissors. Tiny scissors. I'm not going to add oregano. What I am going to add is something from my front window that has been growing out of control, despite it being winter and there not being much sun. So we're going to cut it and use some. Because I think it'll add a lovely, lovely flavor to this thing. Our plant of many names, Cuban oregano. This thing, I should take a picture of how this thing is growing in my front window. It is going crazy. It's growing out really long, leggy stems, obviously looking for more sun, but it's growing a ton of them, and it's also growing really dense leaves in the middle. So it wants more sun, but it's not like it's not getting enough to keep going. We don't use the stem part, but the leaves taste of oregano. And since I'm not using cilantro and I'm not using oregano, these will be my stand-in for that. They don't taste anything like cilantro. That's not a factor here, but they will give a lovely herbaceous, savory herb note to this thing. And that plant has been growing so crazy that I just have to start using it. Oh, one of my rosemaries also did that. It dried up, and I have a dried one now. It's all green still. It's just green and crispy. This needs some salt. Oh, my salt dish has nearly run dry. Which is fine because I just picked up some new salt. Put it in a storage container and we can refill my salt dish. Okay, salt. Yeah, so that happened to me too. One of my rosemaries is toast. The other one's doing fine. Check in on our what I'm calling a glaze over here, but I don't know that that's actually going to end up being how it works out. It sure has reduced. I'm going to turn the temperature down. Does it coat a spoon? It does, actually. Oh, ooh, okay. It's but then it's spicy. Okay. Power on. Olive oil at the ready. It shouldn't need a ton. Well, there's a lot in here, but it's slightly wetter than normal because of the peppers. So we're going to go with the pulse setting so that I have a little bit more control over it. Ooh, it smells really good. Like immediately. Scrape down our sides. Again, I don't want this to be a paste. I want this to be like a finely minced salsa, but with the oil in it, which we're going to now have to definitely I should stream the oil in while it's going, so that the oil doesn't just fall to the bottom and gets caught up in the twist. Yeah, you would have a great view if not for this line of glare right here. Oh, I'm hesitant to move. The camera is on a boom arm now, but the boom arm... We're going to move you guys up a little bit. You can see me. We're going to move you guys up a little bit. You still get the glare, but now you've got a more wide view of the table, and you can see my feet. It does look pretty. I really don't want to completely blend the crap out of it, so... But there does need to be some oil added. Oh, I know. I understood what you were saying. I just wanted to improve things. I'm going to measure out some oil into here, rather than hold the big bottle, because it will be easier to pour quickly. Because I want to pour quickly. We're not making a mayonnaise here. I want to dump it while the blades are going. Okay, that hopefully is what I was talking about right there. It's a little bit less pretty, I would say. Still has a nice, because the oil, of course, is going to mute the colors a little bit. But I think it still has a pretty nice look to it. Let's get my taster spoon. My glazy syrup on the stove is getting mighty thick looking. I also don't see any more big chunks, so ooh. It's bright. It's crunchy, like vegetably crunchy, which will be nice because I don't think I'm going to have much of that going. Well, I am, because we're going to put it in cabbage leaves. If I did this with tortillas, or oh no, that's really quite nice. It needs some acidity, but the acidity can be added after I get it out of there. I don't need to blend that into it. So I think we're going to call that good and pull it off. And we're going to manhandle my camera back into position. It's going to be wrong for sure. Is that right? I think we lost a little bit of the top. We lost about 2 inches at the top. I'll have to adjust that later. But here's the stuff. We did lose the brightness a little bit with that second round of mincing, but I still think it looks quite nice. There's quite a lot of it there. 4, 10, temporary holding, we're going to put it in a bowl that I know is too much for it, but it'll let me stir as I add other things to it. Oh, there's a whole red onion there. Okay, well, that got stuck to the bottom, clearly. Okay. So a few large pieces of red onion escaped us, but we still have, I think the green of the parsley disappeared a little bit when I gave it the second round of blending. But it still looks pretty nice. You're getting a little bit of a muted tone of it, but it looks better in person. I said it needed a little bit more acidity, so I'm going to add a little bit more lemon to it. This is, I mean, I pulled up a recipe for chimichurri, but this is definitely not a chimichurri. Oh, it's so nice. It's bright. It's bright. It's fresh. It's vegetable forward. I actually think slightly less oil. I ended up with a 1/4 cup plus whatever that initial drizzle was. We're going to leave that in that bowl, and I will have way more than I need and transfer it to something else later, but it's mighty tasty. We're going to pop over, I don't know why I just moved that, because I'm not going to use that countertop right now. Oh, I see. We've got more of that. Okay. I gotta figure out where I moved the camera. This stuff is bubbling, but you can see the bubbles are moving real slow. We are starting to form a caramel out of it, which I think is what I wanted. It's dark, it's sticky as all get out. It doesn't just coat the back of a spoon, but it lumps on the back of a spoon. Probably a little bit too thick, honestly. It's really strong. It slaps you in the face with pineapple right off the bat. Ooh, and then it's spicy. And then it's spicy off the back of it. I want to go back the other way just a little bit. Just a smidgen less thick. Because we're not making candy. You know, I'm almost second guessing the cabbage wraps element of this. If we served it like a piece of meat on a plate, I would need a side dish to go with it. I have plenty of time to think about a side dish. And then the salsa can be like one of those draped over the top salsas. See, that's coat the back of a spoon, which is the test for sauces. It's so fruity, and then it slaps you with spice. It's fruity, savory, and then it slaps you with spice. It's actually not super sweet, considering how much sugary stuff is in there. Definitely shouldn't be eaten by itself. Tasting it on its own is really, really punchy. It needs to be with something, for sure. Which is how sauces should be, honestly. If they're edible by themselves, and then you're just making a soup. Sauces should be too much by themselves, and then they balance out when you include them with the thing you're serving them with. Let's see, if I have anything to do what would be a good side if I wanted to change my plan from cabbage, because cabbage isn't going to go anywhere. I can do cabbage whenever. From cabbage wraps, I don't really want to starch is the thing. I wanted to dial back on starches a bit, which is why I thought cabbage would be a good pick, because it's fibrous vegetable. I didn't pick up any new vegetable carrots. I've got a lot of carrots. They are a pretty starchy vegetable. I can't think of what else to do. Do a quick pickle of some cabbage. I'm just thinking about plating. We could do a plate where the meat is the main event and the side is just a side, but there should be something there besides just meat on a plate. We could do a quick pickle. I don't really want more acidity in the dish right now. Is the thing. Honestly, this would be the time when you go to a restaurant and they serve steamed veggies on the side. This would be the time to break out those steamed veggies, because you just need something to break up the plate. What do I have frozen? I've got a bag of frozen okra. I also have normal things like potatoes, which are a starch. We have an ad going right now. That gives me time to think for a minute. We're an hour in. We have okay. Okay. Expert advice time. Yeah, we have ads. We have ads. Expert advice time. Because here's a vegetable I have. What do I do with it? What could I do with it? Gonna take the sticker off. This is a cassava root, also known as yucca, with one C. I've been meaning to give it a try. We're gonna break into it first of all. There's some dark spots underneath the skin. Which probably means this is over the hill already. It's one of those things where I got it with the intention of doing something, and then I didn't do that thing. Ooh, there's a big... That doesn't look good. Gonna have to... Okay. I guess this is the day of just using stuff up. Most of these spots just disappear when you run over them a second time with the peeler. That guy doesn't look so good. That guy does not look good at all. So we're gonna bring our board back. We got to trim that spot out for sure. Oh, it doesn't. Okay, it's not. It's not catastrophic. It goes just about to the middle. There's a little gray thing in there. I have done a tiny bit of reading, so we're taking the stem off, we're taking the nose off, and then that little spot in the center is actually a little hard core that goes all the way down the length of it. It doesn't smell like anything. But you're supposed to get that little hard core out of there, so... It's not good raw, I'll tell you that. It's almost chalky. So I had it in my head to make fufu with this, and then I bought the thing. I keep seeing these at my local grocery store at the Woodman's, and I'm like, oh, I know that vegetable, but I've never had it. I don't know anything about it. And And that happens a lot with a lot of the vegetables. But, oh, there's a cavity in there and a little bit of an ugly, you know what? Gonna cut away that little blemish. Because when I have a new vegetable, I want to try it out, but I typically want to try it out with a recipe that's already proven with the whatever it's. This is a little bit tough to. This will be why this vegetable has not caught on globally as a staple starch. That's what I find with a lot of the, like, this is the local potato equivalent in whatever place it's from. It's a starch, but it's less convenient than the ones we're familiar with, like potato. And that's why it hasn't caught on. Same thing with breadfruit. I really like the flavor of breadfruit. It's a super reductive plant, but they're difficult to peel, and you really can't eat the peel. Mashed cassava with garlic and thyme. You know what? Sure. They got little bits of parsley on them because there was parsley on the board. But otherwise, they look pretty good now that I've got the stuff trimmed off. That was much easier than some other weird things I've dealt with. So if we want to mash them, boil them, mash them. If we want to mash them, we have to get some cold water on the go. Because it's a root. So start it in cold water, boil it, bring it up. I don't need that knife anymore. I'm not trimming. I'm just going to hack these guys into chunks. Ooh. I think just straight up boiling them would be faster. The actual cooking time in the pressure cooker would be less, but the time it would take to get up to pressure, I think, would take more time than just doing it in a pot of boiling water. That's always the concern with the pressure cooker. It can do some things lightning fast, except that you have to factor in the bring up to pressure time. So I am going with just good old-fashioned boiling water. My understanding is this is a staple starch along the lines of a million other staple starches from around the world. But this one is much higher in nutrients and fiber than, for example, white potatoes. And I believe it, cutting into this guy, that it's higher in fiber. Garlic. I think we'll go with rosemary, since I mentioned I have some rosemary plant that went dry. But I guess we're going to boil the heck out of that. Let me garlic mashed yucca. Oh, interesting. It's like snowy white. And this people didn't trim out that little middle part, so maybe you don't have to trim out the little middle part if you're mashing them. And ghee. I don't have any ghee. But like potato, it's going to need some kind of a fat, no doubt, to lubricate the mashing. Oh, and they blend it. They actually use a stick blender on it. And you've heard you can remove it after boiling. Well, I don't know about any of this. So it's all news to me. Selena is the first one here, the first one to arrive today, and has proven it with that redemption. Welcome in. I guess we're just getting started then. The steak's not going to take hardly any time at all. It's thin. We're going to do it in a hot pan, and we're going to attempt to glaze it with my glaze. Okay, and then garlic, and I'm tempted to boil the garlics with them, like just at the end. So then the garlic gets mashed into it. That might be too much of an experiment. Or it might be a good idea. But anyway, this is the local Woodman's caters to a bunch. I think it's a bunch of immigrant communities that have settled in the area, because they have, and they clearly sell because they keep restocking them. So it's not like they're trying stuff out and it's not going. They have cassava. They have the standard American style sweet potato, but then also like African white yam and other more, I don't want to say exotic, because they're not exotic to the places they're from. So yeah, this is what we're doing with this garlic. We're going to cut it into rough, large chunks. We're going to throw it in the boiling water before this stuff is done. Drain it out and mash it through with the root. That's our plan. And I will mix in some rosemary afterwards. I should go cut that now, since I am just kind of standing around. Here's some dried rosemary, fresh from the plant, fresh from the dry plant. I need to just take the time to sit down and pick all the leaves now that it is actually dry, and it's very crispy dry because I failed watering it and it dried out, and then when I watered it and it didn't bounce back, I just kind of set it aside, and it has gotten progressively drier and drier as it has been set aside. When I first set it aside, it wasn't like crispy; it was just clearly not gonna come back. Roots are boiling. We're over here. I've just picked some rosemary off of my thing. It's dry enough that I think I can crush it. Maybe. It's slightly hard. We're going to grind it. We're going to grind it rather than try to crush it with my fingers. We're going to grind it with a little bit of salt as an abrasive. If you're ever trying to grind an herb and you can feel the mortar just kind of sliding over it, put a little bit of salt in there. Be, of course, careful that you're adding salt. Uncle Stanky, hi. Hi from Wisconsin. Well, you're in luck. We're not making Japanese yams. Those are the purple ones? Are those the purple ones? Or is that a different yam? We're working with cassava / yucca. I don't know how long to boil them. They smell interesting. They certainly don't smell anything like boiling potatoes. Not even a little bit. I'm always interested when you hear something that's culinarily very similar, but it's like very different. Purple skin with really pale flesh. Interesting. I'm not familiar with that kind. I've seen the ones that are purple on the inside. They're like bright purple on the inside. Huh. This one is just throw the garlic in there. Garlic going in. Until you can easily mash the flesh with a fork. About 20 minutes. Oh, I bet in one of those hub towns like Seattle, I am sure that they got some crazy stuff turning up over there. If I head over to the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, I can get a lot more things. I'm kind of I'm close enough that I can make a trip there, but far enough that I don't want to have to make a trip there. But sometimes you just have to go find something, and they often will have things there that are just slightly exotic. Um, so what's new with you? Make sure none of these guys are sticking. They feel still rather hard, but I'm going to check them periodically just to see, because I'm unfamiliar with them. So we're well, I could break it in half with the chopsticks, so it's definitely soft. It's got a snowy white chunk in the core that obviously hasn't boiled as much as the outer layers. Can I just mash it with the side of the chopsticks? I mean, I can. Give it just a little bit more time, but... Ooh! Ooh! Oh, it tastes really nice. Oh, Oh, it tastes like... What does it taste like? It's really nice. It's starchy. It's slightly dry. Oh, it's Oh, what is it? It reminds me of something. It's got like a mellow, almost creaminess to it. Oh, that's that's nice. That's nice. That is worth. Okay, that's worth the effort of trimming it up because it's real nice. Um, russet fries, steamed pan fried, mostly successful, minus user error. That's the problem I've had with fries every time I've made them. User error. I get impatient. I get impatient and I don't do them properly. Um, okay. Well, that chunk was one of the larger pieces, and it was definitely edibly done. So we're going to take those guys off the heat. We're going to mash them with just a little bit of their own water. I use melted ghee. I don't have any ghee. We used up all my ghee. I could use butter. Boil them. This one suggests cooking them in broth as well. And a stick blender. Okay. I guess we're going to turn that burner off because I'm not going to use it right away. We're going to drain out the root chunks here without pouring them into the sink. There's a little dribble of water in the bottom. Okay, this is what they look like boiled. Not too much different. I'm going to go with plain old ordinary butter. 2 tablespoons. I don't know. I'm not really following the amounts for this recipe. I don't know how I could. I didn't weigh the yuca beforehand. But we will throw in our plain old ordinary butter. The garlic chunks are already in there. And my rosemary salt. Do I want to add? I don't think I want to add the rosemary salt until I've got them started. And I actually think I should. Should I mash them? That butter needs to melt. I don't want to use the stick blender because I don't want to get out another device that I have to clean. So we're going to use the old-fashioned masher. Oh, the smell really reminds, the taste and the smell really reminds me of something I've had. It's almost like popcorn. It's like, not exactly, but it's got almost like a popcorny smell to it. Obviously, the stick blender would make this super, super smooth. Gonna add a little bit of milk. It's a little bit harder to mash than potato. There's definitely a slight fibrousness to it, which is probably why this recipe I pulled up, which is from our salty kitchen. Probably has us use the stick blender. Because, yeah, I think it does need... It's dense. I think of the water? No, the water was just water with the roots and some garlic cloves that got thrown in there so that they would get mashed into the rest of it. Okay. Now I add the rosemary salt. Oh, it is a dense. It's a bit dense. It's a I almost want to add just a bunch of liquid to it. See if I can't loosen it up a little bit. It's thicker and stickier than any potato I've encountered, for sure. So let's add just some plain old water to it. Put the masher back and see if I can't soften it up just a smidge. That was probably a little bit too much water. This makes sense to me because the thing I originally got this root for, fufu, uses the yucca / cassava as a binder, as a paste, to form a paste. Yeah, I mean, look at how it's thickening. So this stuff is a powerful thickener. Good to know, good to know. And that means you have to add some liquid to it. It's going to have, yeah, it's even a little bit stringy. Interesting. Okay. Well, that was a learning experience. I'm glad I didn't do the stick blender. I think it would have broken my stick blender the way it seized up until I added that extra liquid to it. Probably when you do this, leave in around half a cup of the boiling water just to help it form a mash. It's say mash. It's gooier than a mash, for sure. Taste is really nice. It tastes really nice. Okay, I guess that's my accompaniment. It doesn't look like a lot, but it's gonna... Okay, that means we are on to our final and main event. Oh, there's an ad right now. No, the ad's over. The ad trackers are confused again. But we're back with our piece of meat, which is now fridge cold. It was already fridge cold, but now the surface has hopefully dried off a little bit. We're going to pat it down one more time before we throw it in there. I am going to take my knife that we just used for the butter, because I noticed this little strap along the edge. Oh yeah, that's definitely a piece of silver skin. I'm gonna try to
get it off of there without mangling anything too badly. It should, if you can get a hold of it, because it is so tough. I've seen butchers do this, and they just grab it and they yank and the whole thing comes off. But I've always had a hard time with it. We're losing a little bit of meat in the interest of getting this. Don't cut deeper into the meat. Okay, well, I definitely sawed the edge off a little bit there, more than I intended to. I'm a little bit worried about this piece in the middle too. That might just be unavoidable. This muscle just has a there might just be a little bit of gristle that we have to deal with right in the middle there, because I don't know how I can get at any of these interior bits without hacking this thing to pieces. The whole this, I'm sure, is why this one didn't sell initially and went in the bargain bin. Anyways, okay, we lost a little bit to the trimming because I'm bad at trimming, and once the blade bites into the muscle, it really wants to keep going. Oh, a towel! I thought you meant a towel. I am kidding. I am joking. I didn't even notice you had misspelled it until you corrected yourself. Right. We're gonna get a. I said at the beginning we're not doing this in cast iron because I am afraid of the acidity of the pineapple sauce. So we're doing it in the big stainless pot because it's got a wide flat bottom. And we are doing it with this beastie. This was, I can't remember what I made. This is pork drippings. The bottom part is mostly water because it was a braise in the magic pot. The top part is pork fat. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop it over the sink so I don't spill the liquid in. Drop that puck in there and use that as my fat. That just smells like boiled pork. I don't think I'm going to save the rest of it. There's not enough there. But it's a good use for the excess fat. I can't remember what I made. I made something. It was just like very clean. Boiled pork. So yeah, we're at the time and I'm sure somebody is up in arms about me using stainless for a steak, but nuts to them, I say. So we need that. The stainless will also heat up faster than the cast iron. Our mash has already re-solidified. Let's check it for consistency. And flavor, but consistency, that's decadent. That's decadent. And I only added 2 tablespoons of butter. Wow. I'm curious to do that with no butter, just the water. I'm curious now. Or perhaps because it wants to seize up so much, a dab of olive oil. So you don't want to add liquid fats to mashed potatoes because it makes them too loose. But this stuff is already so thick. Well, I'm excited to buy another cassava and play around with that. We may have a new breadfruit on our hands. If you're not familiar, I discovered breadfruit at the same store and spent so long just playing around with breadfruits and having fun with breadfruits and serving people breadfruits. Okay. The meat's going to end up being dark. The cassava is white and our salsa is multicolored. So thinking ahead to our plating, I think the stripy plate, the sort of medium brown stripy plate, might be our best bet. We're going to let that pan sizzle a little bit, because obviously there was some water in our fat from the, because it was touching the drippings part of that jar. We're going to let that sizzle away, boil away a little bit to ensure that our fat is nice and hot before I throw the meat in. And actually, I think we got something happening along here. We are, as they say, cooking with gas, except we're not cooking with gas, we're cooking with electric. Now you're cooking with electric. So if it's still audibly bubbling like this, that means we're at the boiling point, because the water that was caught up in that fat puck is boiling away, which means we're not hot enough for our meat yet. We want the pan to be quite hot when we put the meat in. And also, it's spitting a lot, and I would like it to maybe stop that. It's slowing down a little bit. I'm not sure what part of the world we're in right now with the cuisine I've got going. Could be none of them. I'm not sure how to test for hotness when it's already got snappy water in it, except to wait for the bubbles to stop, which they're doing gradually. They are slowing down. We're getting fewer but larger bubbles, and the whole process is slowing down. We shouldn't be any risk. This isn't butter, so there's really no risk of this burning. Anything that burns in here is not the drippings that we're using. I mean, that's probably, I can see it smoking a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and say that that is time for meat. Meat time. And I don't know if this is a good idea, but it's what I'm doing. Oh, well, obviously that, using the spatula for that is not a good idea. This is the part where I didn't want to use the cast iron, because this stuff is quite acidic. Probably should have put that on there before I put the whole thing in. Like, done it on both sides. Just let it. I don't know why I didn't. I honestly don't know why I didn't. Other than I guess I wanted some direct pan contact for the one side of it. That guy's not gonna fit. So we're gonna have the combination tongs small spatula in the event that I need to get it to let go. Gotta know where your towel is. My towel, you can't see it. You can never see it because it is behind. It is behind this camera. It's right here. It lives. Well, actually, I can probably show you with. Can I get this to look over there well enough? There it is. It hangs on the tripod of the stove camera, so it always immediately at hand for me. That's looking pretty good. We are going to glaze this side as well. And then I'll flip it back to harden it up a little bit. We're having a weird sort of contraction here by the thing that I pointed at as the likely reason why this was discounted in the first place. That sort of odd gristly bit that was in the middle that I said would be basically impossible to trim without hacking the whole thing apart. We should have hacked the whole thing apart to trim it out. Really glad I trimmed the edge where that skin was, though. That stuff just contracts when you heat it. And I've done one of those before where I had one of those and I didn't, and the whole thing turned into a bowl. Have you tried using Mitsuyu Mirin Sake ketchup as a sauce to cook meats? I have not tried that. I don't have or have heard of Mitsuyu. I'll look it up now. Mitsuyu. Noodle base, huh? Noodle. Soy sauce, mirin sake, and dashi. So it's got soy sauce. So it's got mirin sake twice. Soy sauce, and I have dashi. I could cobble that together. I'll try that sometime. I will try that sometime. We ended up not needing the flipper. It didn't stick at all. That side is, of course, less nice looking on account of it had the sauce on it. So it kind of steamed. So actually, I'm glad I did it the way I did it, with the first side just getting naked metal, because it'll have more color, and that can be our top side for plating. Okay, okay. Tidy up for a sec here. This side shouldn't need much time. It's just I wanted the our sauce here. Which isn't the sauce. This isn't. We're not going to serve it with this sauce. I want this flavor to kind of be cooked into the surface of the meat. What do you guys think? Is it probably done? It's probably. I'm not worried about it making it a perfect medium rare or whatever. That side looks really nice. Um, But it's probably cooked at this point, right? It's such a thin piece, it's not going to take very long. I'm going to pull it. Turn the heat off so that does not turn into a solid burnt-on mass, which is probably already has, really. That's a big steak. Gonna be leftovers here for sure. Is this one working, or is this one the battery died? The battery died on that one. It's so thin that it's going to be hard to give it. $135 over there, so that's on the rare side. But that's the thick bit. Oh, it's actually cool in the middle. Huh. It actually might be slightly cool in the middle. Maybe. It's so thin, though. These outer bits are for sure hot. $30. It's around right, I think. I don't want to put it back. It's definitely more than, it's definitely on the cooked side of rare. So no matter where I put the poker, even in the thick spot. So hopefully we've got a nice pink in the middle when we slice into it. We're gonna let it rest now. And you don't want to cut into these guys right away. They will bleed juice everywhere. We're going to start assembling our plate, or prepping our plate. I want to use this one because this stuff is nice and dark. It'll show up. The mash here is nice and light. It'll show up. And then the bright colors of our salsa will hopefully complement them both. This stuff. Oh, and the ad came up on me. So when we're done with the ad, then like an arc of the meat. With this guy, and we should clean him and then sharpen him. So I'm going to do that while you guys are on the ad. Set the plate aside, bring the meat back to the middle. We're back from the ad. Okay, and then we give it a quick wipe to make sure there's no metal dust on the edge. Okay, what I want is this piece here, like that half of it, then cut along. So I am going to start by cutting through the whole thing like so. And we have a nice pink in the middle, actually. That's better than I usually do them. I'm not great at steaks. When you cut a steak, you're supposed to want to do as few strokes as possible. Which is not always workable depending on your knife, your steak, and your skills. And even though I just sharpened this knife up, we definitely have to give it a few little pushes to get it through these guys. I'm amazed that the juice didn't immediately run off the end. That is a nice piece of steak, and that could also have been a nice piece of steak. We should have broken this guy down into multiple parts. As for our interior color, they're nice and pink. This side even has a little pink in it. We didn't overdo it. I'm glad I took it out when I did, and I'm glad I'm getting better at these. And I guess that's going to be my plating. It's not the specialist in the world, but good enough. And we can't forget our salsa that we have way too much of, but it's very good. There, okay, that's my plate. That's what we're working with. This kind of spread, this doesn't stand up tall the way mashed potatoes do so much. It wants to spread out. Probably should have put that in a little dish. I wonder if it, would it be tacky to scrape it into a dish, clean the plate up? It actually scrapes off pretty cleanly. Oh, why am I doing this? What are we doing on this plating? Hi, George. I changed my mind, and the cassava was spreading out too much, so I wanted it to be in a little bowl instead of loose on the plate. Also, hi, George. You are just in time for the end of all things today. We have a spicy pineapple marinated steak with a bell pepper chimichurri and mashed cassava, garlic rosemary cassava. All of the ingredients today are things that I had laying around that needed to be used up. That was our theme. I want like a little green sprinkle on the top of that guy, because you can't see the rosemary. So let me grab a little bit of rosemary. But we're just about to do the tasting. That's where we are now, because we've done the plating. Okay. And as has happened, well, we're going to bounce out, take the photos with our new, slightly nicer camera that I've already had better luck with. Okay. And then we come back and we do the official tasting. Oh my God. Ratatouille is a good movie. Well, I won't keep you very long. I don't need a fresh spoon. I can use the one I was just using, which I set down somewhere. Where did I put that? Oh, there. Okay, the tasting. First of all, the main event. No beating around the bush for here. The main event, steak with some salsa. Mm. Okay. There's a little bit of gristle in it still. We're going to be, I don't think I got the whole strap off when I cut it. We're going to be fighting with that a little bit as we go. This is a pretty lean cut. It's cooked well. It's nice and tender, except for that little bit of gristle. Let's try a piece out of the middle. Mm. It's a little chewy. I think that probably comes down to the cut, because it's not real badly overdone, but it's a little chewy. The flavor's nice. Honestly, for how intense our pineapple glaze was, barely tasted on the actual finished product. So I'm happy for the salsa. Gives us some more dimension to it. It's a little bit one note otherwise. I'm surprised. And there's little bits of gristle in it. I don't like that. Well, for having not overcooked the steak, it is a cheap steak. So I suppose it is what it is in that sense. I'll stop taking bites so that I stop having to pull gristle out of my teeth, which isn't good viewing. The flavor's nice. I think the salsa, which we have a ton of, this stuff is really very nice. It's crunchy. It's fresh. I'm disappointed. The meat is very one note, very sort of flat one note. I thought for sure that the spicy pineapple marinade and then spicy pineapple glaze was going to do something more than just make it taste kind of like beef. Um, huh. Well, that's a little bit of a letdown. But I didn't pick up a fresh steak for this. We had one in the freezer and it was very old, so it had to be used up. It might be that it was very old and the age, even though it wasn't freezer burning, was starting to get to it. This stuff, I already tasted it a few times. It is a little gluier than potato. Mm. But it tastes really nice. It's with the rosemary and the garlic mixed into it, it doesn't taste as much like that. The flavor that I couldn't put my finger on is still in there, but it was so subtle on its own that it's kind of disappearing into the rosemary and the garlic and the butter that we added to it. I want to play around with this. I really liked that blank flavor that it had. Like I said, it was almost like subtly popcorny. Um, I really quite like this stuff, actually. I didn't blend it. I didn't go through the trouble of making this super, super smooth. So it's got little lumps in it, but the lumps aren't problematic at all. They're very tender. They're slightly fibery. I'm surprised at how much it has re-firmed up after I added all that extra water to it just to loosen it up. You could definitely make things with this. It's very, like, it's very almost gluey. Um, so take care and make sure you have enough liquid in there to loosen it up to make it not just like a bowl of paste. In terms of texture, in terms of flavor, it's delightful. It's lovely. I Having done this with it, I fully understand fufu because the way this stuff is acting as a binder just by itself, it would be very easy to turn this into a ball of dough that is just held together by itself. You would not need to add anything to this to make it stick. I wonder if this stuff is sticky enough to turn into a like kneadable dough, if you could turn this into a bread. I don't think it's got a lot of protein in it. I don't think you'd get gluten development. There's no gluten because it's a root. But you might be able to get like a flatbread or something out of it. I'm really curious because it's got some interesting properties to it. That You remember a while back I made, it was potatoes wrapped around. It was like mashed potatoes wrapped around something in the middle. And I had a hard time getting them to stick. And I had eggs and I had also, eggs and flour and try to make it bind. I wonder if you couldn't use this stuff and make a really like nice outer casing for something in the middle that would just stick to itself really, really well and not have to add all that extra thickeners, binders. Huh. It's funny because our main event, the steak, is a little bit disappointing. I really like the salsa that I made for it, and I'm really excited about playing with cassava, which wasn't even on the docket, and I was going to make cabbage wraps. The cabbage ended up not getting used. It's in the title, and we didn't use the cabbage. Um, Well, I didn't predict this is where we were going today, but here we are. I think for the rest of the I think skirt steak would have worked better. This was a sirloin tip, which is a cut I have used before, and I've never gotten it to work the way I want it to. Um, we used this one because I literally already had it on hand. I didn't not going to buy a brand new steak for this. I've used skirt is one of my favorite cuts overall, and when I find it on sale or I find it in the bargain bin or whatever, I snap it up. But it's so rarely available. I love skirt. Um, it takes a marinade really well. You can cook it super fast, and then slice it across, and you come out with just this melt in your mouth tender uh, thing. That would have been This would have been better there for sure. Um, as it is, I'm not going to toss it out. I'm going to eat it, but I'm going to be slightly underwhelmed as I'm doing so. Um, I kind of want to use some of the extra drippings over here that pooled on my cutting board to gussy it up. Um, but I'm not sure how to get that off of there without spilling it everywhere. For the other part, for the other half over here, whatever I do with it, I'm gonna probably end up slicing it super thin to try to work around the fact that it is a little bit chewy. Maybe turn it into a stir fry. It's already mostly cooked, so it can be thrown in right at the end of something. And by mostly cooked, I mean it's cooked to a pretty, like, if we look at the interior, it's like a nice medium rare in there. I hit my doneness target really well. I just think that the steak itself is a bit of a underwhelming steak. Okay, well, I should wrap us up because I started late today and I have run a little bit long, so I should wrap us up before I ramble on too much longer. Let's see who is on. I saw right when I was going on a name pop up. WeFormer is on. We're rating WeFormer. Who is drawing today? Not doing arts and crafts, or not doing plushcraft. So let's all go say hi to WeFormer. Thanks for sticking with me to the end. If you've done so, thanks for bearing with me canceling at the last second last night. And yes, Ryuya. Oh yeah. Let me real quick grab this thing. Okay. I post pictures and go lives and occasionally cancellations in the Discord, which is real small and real bare bones at this point. It's just communicative, but you don't let me stop you from hanging out and chit chatting. Yeah. As usual, I have not planned ahead and don't know when I'll be on next, but by gum, it should definitely be Monday because I really want to lock in Monday as the day. So let me smile awkwardly at you. See you next time. Bye. Let me push stop.